Oklahoma State's new interim DC Clint Bowen already being better is a direct reflection, unfortunately, of the crap fest that Todd Grantham and his staff decided to bring to Stillwater, Oklahoma.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayO State. Today, we're partially brought to you by Game Time Tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Meanwhile, we get to slide into this conversation of new interim defense coordinator Clint Bowen already being significantly better than Todd Grantham. It's a microcosm, unfortunately, of what we thought was going to come to Stillwater this season. And I owe everybody out here an apology because I bought it hook, line, and sinker. I firmly believe that Todd Grantham and this SEC staff and all of these SEC transfers were going to equal an SEC style of defense, at least from an aggressive standpoint and the big body beast down low being physically dominant at times standpoint, or being good at twist and stunts and being responsible in our gap sound approach to the game. But unfortunately, none of that happened. And yes, I do know that Arizona did still cook Oklahoma State, but it was through the air, which is a different story for a different time to some degree. But through the air, Oklahoma State definitely still has some difficulties. But when you look back in this Arizona ball game, from a defensive perspective, Oklahoma State did significantly better. Passing yards compared to the previous week are unfortunately pretty comparable, but the rushing yards are not even close. And that is what we thought we were going to get out of Todd Grantham's defense, because what did Todd Grantham do at previous stops? He had a really good rushing defense. The pass defense was always a problem, which is why Florida fans were telling us be prepared for a lot of third and Grantham. On first and second down, he's good. On sacks, tackles for loss, he's good. But that didn't even happen. But against Arizona, with Clint Bowen at the helm, Oklahoma State only gave up 45 rushing yards. And Ismail Mahdi is a bad mamma jamma. He only had 34 yards at 2.4 yards per carry. The team, collectively, Arizona, only rushed for 1.4 yards per carry. Yes, we could talk about the back end of the defense all day, every day, but Clint Bowen was recently running the scout team. Now he's running all of it. And I do think that there is a correlation between that and the players that we saw make some plays against Arizona. But just for argument's sake, if you go back and look against Baylor, where Oklahoma State offensively put up 27 points and gave everybody a little bit of hope, in that ball game, the Baylor Bears unfortunately rushed for 219 yards on Oklahoma State. You want to go back before that, while Todd Grantham was still in control, against Tulsa. I mean, we remember we watched Dominic Richardson almost put up a $150 by himself, and Braylon Presley caught the first touchdown on their way to rushing for over 205 yards on Oklahoma State with a former Cowboy that we told was not good enough and Baylor said was not good enough at Tulsa, absolutely dominating us. Is the passing game still a massive issue? 100%, right? When you give up almost 400 yards to Baylor and then you give over 400 yards passing to Arizona, their wide receivers had a big day. But I think that Clint Bowen has definitely been a breath of fresh air so far. If we can combine the Baylor offensive performance against the Arizona rushing defensive performance, Oklahoma State could find their way into creeping into a W territory. We might end up saying that throughout the course of the season. But holistically, even on top of statistics that prove that Clint Bowen is bringing what Todd Grantham was supposed to bring. Like, we knew there was going to be some back-end issues occasionally. We talked about going for broke to get burned deep occasionally and how that was going to be okay, because if you live in the backfield and you have enough sacks, enough tackles for loss, that getting burnt deep occasionally is not all that big of a deal. But the part that Todd Grantham was supposed to be good at, the front seven, containing the run game, we have been atrocious until the Arizona game. And Clint Bowen, being that scout team dude, I think that that you see that in this previous ball game. Instead of the same old cast of characters, we've been hooting and hollering and begging and pleading to give us the guys on the field that give a crap, regardless of what their NIL looks like. And in this game, the leading tackler finally was Mordecai McDaniel. Then you had behind him again Parker Robertson. Parker Robertson is an individual that I guarantee you is not making anywhere near the NIL that he deserves and he's earned just because of his work ethic and his willingness to go to everything on time and stay late to everything. Mordecai McDaniel being up here is big. Wendell Gregory seems to have a little bit of a better performance in this ball game after disappearing largely for a couple weeks. J.K. Johnson got in with 5 total tackles, including a solo tackle. Kenneth Harris Jr. had a more prevalent role in this ball game, chipping in with 4 tackles, 2 solos, 2 passes deflected. Wendell Gregory also gets in with the passes deflected. But as we continue down this list, Kyron Duhan, 4 tackles, 2 solo. Malik Charles, 4 tackles. Then you look at Jacoby Oliphant, gets in there a little bit more. Puasa Utu had a big game, 3 tackles, 1 solo, 1 pass deflected. Landon Dean was a scout team dude to start the season, much like Puasa Utu, much like even a Michael Diata, who was able to get in there rocking in wide receiver number 81. We saw Aiden Davenport in this ball game. We saw a little bit more of Aiden Kelly, Sidvini Hafili Kafusi. LaDainian Fields finally gets his opportunity, and what does he do with it? He takes a pick 6 all the way to the house. We're seeing more and more Armstrong Nodum. Ike Essenwoon has made much, much more of a presence felt on the field recently. Trip White gets in there and continues to do some things. Raymond the Gay II gets in there. We're seeing some guys that truly believe in Oklahoma State. They believe in the Cowboy culture. They believe what they were sold when they came here, that are finally getting some more play. So once again, we know that athletically we're behind most of the teams in the Big 12, if not every single team in the Big 12, unfortunately. And this is because we were sold a bill of goods that if Todd Grantham brings in this SEC staff and they're able to bring in all of this SEC, Big 10, ACC transfer talent, that Oklahoma State is going to get significantly better. But as you'll listen to with Brian Smith surely later, when he talks about recruiting and some of the difficulties that come with the transfer portal and what happened at Florida State, there's a lot of correlation there as well. So the bill of goods that we were sold on Todd Grantham and all this SEC staff and this SEC style D, I was pushing it. I believed in it. I chugged that orange Kool-Aid to the core, and turns out, much like the roster problems, the best option was the dude running scout team. The best defensive coordinator was the guy who was running scout team. And turns out some of the better players on the field that are putting forth effort and getting in the backfield and making life at least somewhat difficult are most of the guys who started the spring as scout team dudes or started the fall as scout team dudes, as just numerical pieces to help us get a good look in practice. Those guys like Gunnar Wilson and Puasa Utu, those are the dudes that are actually performing out on the football field in these ball games. And as you see it, 45 yards rushing total for Arizona, who came in as a team that was likely planning on running on Oklahoma State because, everybody else had. So do we need to shore some things up in the back end? 100%, absolutely. But there was glimpses in the Arizona game and the Baylor game that are definitely encouraging. We're not ready to take a leap of faith and say we're going to win a ball game per se, but you're starting to see, in my opinion, the players that give a crap are the ones that are starting to play. And it's not a coincidence that Clint Bowen was just recently running scout team, and now some scout team dudes are on the field and they're playing better than the guys that are making $15,000 to $25,000 a month in NIL. So yes, Clint is significantly better than Todd Grantham. Clint is doing something and proving something and showing all of us that sometimes the best option to be on the field with the headset, in control of things from coaches and players, were the dudes that were shoved in the dark corners to begin this season. Again, it's just an accentuation of we bet heavy. We spent the right amount of money on NIL. Like spending $13 million is definitely good enough to keep you competitive. But we spent it on the wrong dudes. And then there's supposed to be a reevaluation period throughout the course of the season. So the guys like Parker Robertson, the guys like LaDainian Fields, the guys like Ike Essenwoon would have bigger incentives to continue to do everything the right way. But that unfortunately was not happening. it appears as though the more you see the Ike Wounds and the Armstrong Nodums and the Gunnar Wilsons and the LaDainian Fieldses of the world, it is Clint Bowen and even to some degree Doug Meacham embracing the fact that the guys making the most amount of money for the most part are part of the problem. The guys barely making anything in this NIL era are the dudes that we should be leaning on. So yes, Clint Bowen is better. Ladies and gentlemen, Prize Picks is the bee's knees when you're trying to have fun, right? In your daily fantasy lineups. Every day we make decisions, but on Prize Picks days, we can kind of be right and get paid for being right. So don't miss out on the excitement of this football season with Prize Picks, where it pays to be right. Playing Prize Picks is a lot of fun. It's the simple way to add more excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections, like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley's rushing for a touchdown or Jalen Warren's ability to get in the end zone. You're going to love how quick it is. Whenever you make your lineup, it's done within a minute. The best part is Prize Picks just added something called stacks. So if you want to ride with a player, you can select their passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns all into one lineup. It's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with one simple click. And the new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it will not count against you. So download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. That is Locked On College, all one word, for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup is a winner. Prize Picks. Go there today where it's good to be right. All right, now we get to slide into the other side of the equation, which is Clint Bowen. Is Clint clearly doing enough to at least make a case for perhaps being a positional coach with the next staff? On the flip side of that coin, Doug Meacham showed us a little bit of hope against Baylor. He showed enough for him to be on a week-to-week, scaling basis of whether he should be the next head coach or not. And I think you could look at this from two different angles. Number one, could Doug Meacham perform so well that he becomes the next coach? Yes, absolutely. After this Arizona game, I would argue that some of that has faded a little bit because of the hopium that we were all drinking down with copious amounts of love after the Baylor game was non-existent against Arizona. And now we have a little bit more of a difficult situation happening at quarterback, which I think means give us more Sam Jackson. I mean, we should have had more Sam Jackson actually dropping back as a pure quarterback against Arizona. That is one thing that I was a little perplexed by, is why would you utilize different backfield packages for Baylor, but largely abandon those same principal packages for Arizona? They worked against Baylor, and then we didn't really show those wrinkles for the most part against Arizona. That's confusing. Is it perhaps Doug Meacham overthinking things? And because it was some film out there from the Baylor game of doing it, he didn't necessarily want to do it as much in this ball game. Whatever the case may be, if Doug Meacham is trying to audition for the next head coaching job, his first week, he did okay. His next week was pretty terrible. So now we get another opportunity for Doug Meacham to make a case for himself to either be the next head coach at Oklahoma State, or the other layer of it is, should he be retained as a position coach? Doug Meacham does have a lot of success in the wide receiver room, and not only developmentally, but recruiting. Doug Meacham has always had the capability of recruiting, which is why TCU utilized him in those roles for as long as they did, and even Oklahoma State back in the day, back when we had some of the Brandon Pettigrews and the Des Bryants of the world. That was partially because Doug Meacham had a hand in some of those recruiting avenues that we were able to explore then. So there are some things that get us excited about the prospect of Doug Meacham. He's an old school Cowboy guy that was an offensive lineman that blocked for Barry and Thurman and Gundy back in the day. So that connection is important. The Cowboy culture is likely pretty important to him because, once again, he was here when we were winning Big 12 title, and we were putting ourselves in a position to constantly have top 30 recruiting classes. He was here for all of that. the Dana Holgerson stuff, the Todd Monken stuff. He was largely here for those players that were on those rosters or part of the coaching staffs that coach those teams. So he has a lot of familiarity that obviously Oklahoma State fans do covet. But on a week-to-week basis, I would say his first week, he showed enough for us to at least consider him being a position coach or maybe a coordinator. This week against Arizona, in his second opportunity, it was the exact opposite. The offensive ineptitude was visible once again. Our lack of creativity offensively was visible. Our lack of ability to open up holes was very visible. And now we have some depleted tight end stuff happening and some redshirt stuff happening. And perhaps we're having to move some other guys from the other side of the ball just to kind of, scout team their way through having tight ends and things of that nature. And we're utilizing a bunch of Band-Aids. But part of that is on Doug Meacham because he has to be able to instill faith in the locker room that, hey, stick with me. Give me an opportunity to make this thing work out. And unfortunately, most of these dudes have the 30-day window that they're still in exploration mode of. So if you're Doug Meacham and you're trying to put something on display that says, hey, hold on, don't enter the portal yet, rock with me for a little bit. He showed that against Baylor, which is why we didn't really have any portal entries then. And then obviously you see the disaster of Arizona from an offensive perspective and a backfield defensively perspective. And now we have a little bit of a decent number of dudes entering the portal. Only a couple are potentially concerning in my personal opinion. But, on a week-to-week basis, Doug Meacham's stock just went down quite a bit with this Arizona game. All right, Doug Meacham, Kevin Johns, the development of quarterback was going to be important. We as a coaching staff, we ran Garrett Rangel and Milwaukee Smith out of Dodge, to have Zane Flores and Haas Haney. Right, so we unfortunately, to some degree, are a byproduct of what we asked for as a coaching staff. The Zane train, it felt promising. It looked like it could be promising. He's got the size, the strength, enough speed. He's got plenty of arm talent. He's got the zip that we talk about. But running the offense and being on time to windows is a struggle. Right? It seems as though that he'll see the right receiver in the right area, but he's waiting a couple seconds too long to actually let it rip. He's not anticipating the windows being open, or he's not throwing to the windows to become open. And that's a limiting factor. So if Doug Meacham is on a week-to-week basis and he needs to rise his stock again, give us Sam Jackson. Give us Trent Allen back at the Wildcat. Like, what was that about? He was the best player on the field for us against Oregon. He was the best running back on the field against Baylor. And the Wildcat stuff gave Baylor, some reasons to be slightly concerned. And then again, against Arizona, we largely abandoned it, most of that, which is why I say Doug Meacham's stock went up and then it came down pretty darn quickly because the things that we did well against Baylor, for the most part, we didn't even necessarily try against Arizona. It's like we tried to get too cute or we tried to do too much. I'm not sure. But I do know that offensively, we should have found an identity against Baylor and then used that in Arizona, and then we did something completely different. So I don't know if we're overthinking it or trying to do too much, trying to get too cute. But if Doug Meacham is going to make a case for him being the next head coach, the next offensive coordinator, or even stay as a position coach, he's got to creativity-wise make something happen against the Houston Cougs, who thankfully do have a couple Cowboys to still cheer for, regardless of what happens on Saturday. Get tickets so you can go check out the Houston Cougs take on Oklahoma State Cowboys with Game Time. Football is back, of course. Maybe not so much in Stillwater, but around the country it is. And so around the country, the tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's really nothing else that compares. But let's be honest, getting tickets can sometimes be more of a battle than the battle the team is about to put on the field. Whether it be waiting forever, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout, you got to use Game Time to get rid of all this ridiculousness. Game Time is the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. When you pull up Game Time in just a couple taps, you can see the most amazing deals in the industry. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as like $25. The app makes it super simplistic, so you can even view the exact seat before you purchase. Make sure that you go take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, that is promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, and go. Download Game Time today. Go represent your local neighborhood spot as well with Square. Today, we get to talk a little bit more about Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots likely run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood feel much more like a neighborhood, and you need to support those businesses because those are the places that become an extension of your home. So whether it's your favorite sports bar down the road or the best spot in town to get wings on game days, or the beloved local chain that you've been rooting for since it very first opened and been in the community for years. These are the businesses that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood can thrive as well. When you show up as a community, it means that big business can have that local feel to it because they are local business owners. Money spent in the neighborhood stays in the neighborhood. So whether you're just like me and you're going up to your local grocery store, knowing that they're going to welcome you with a smile and know precisely what aisles you're likely to get to first, make sure that you go support your Square business as well. Square is a proud partner of over 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege, all one word, to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy that you did with Square because Square allows you to see more inside your own neighborhood. All righty. Now we get to talk about Houston, the connection, the ball game coming into the season. Even if you weren't like Cody, right, and you were higher than a draft's you-know-what up in the sky, thinking that we could win 8, 9 games, even if you weren't on my crazy level, you probably would have assumed that Oklahoma State beats Tennessee Martin, they beat Tulsa, they beat Houston, they beat Cincinnati, right? And some of the other games maybe a little bit more precarious, but you coming in the season, you probably said we beat UCF, right? So that's like 5 wins at least. Like that felt like if things went completely tatas up, Oklahoma State would still be able to find a way to win at least 5 ball games. That was like worst case scenario, almost Armageddon levels. And we're not even going to get there. At least it doesn't appear that way. Now, if Doug Meacham does want to make a case for him being the next head coach, if he were to win 4 or 5 in a row, then absolutely that would definitely put him in that conversation. Likewise, if Clint Bowen keeps this up where he's only allowing 45 yards rushing per game, then perhaps he makes a case. But nonetheless, we get to play Houston. And regardless of what the game looks like or how the score gets, it is alumni weekend. So, naturally you need to try to go out there and support the Cowboys, support the players that are on the field that do actually give a crap still, that care more about the name on the front than the one on the back. You got to go out and support those dudes. More importantly, we get to see a couple former Cowboys. We get Jason Queso Brooks, who's been absolutely on fire this year at Houston. I mean, he was one of the people talked about the most in fall camp. So it does make sense to see him performing at the level that he is. Just like it also makes sense because he was the best PFF graded offensive lineman on Oklahoma State's roster last season. And for whatever reason, he didn't really get to play a whole heck of a lot. Noah McKinney was right behind Jason Queso Brooks last season in a lot of the PFF style grading categories out of practices. And now he's getting his opportunity. And he's proving that he's pretty loyal and true. He's pretty bought in. He's pretty ready to rock and roll. We get to see former Cowboys, Boogie Johnson, and also, of course, Jason Queso Brooks. Whenever you listen to the broadcast people, whenever you watch the Houston game, they all talk about how Stephon Boogie Johnson is the leader of the wide receiver room and that he is typically the primary target that has the most ability to take the top off of the defense. Of course, in Oklahoma State country, we're very well aware of that because freshmen typically didn't play much, especially as a wide receiver, and he was able to do that. He was able to have some massive moments in an Oklahoma State jersey, which is why it sucked to see him go. Jason Queso Brooks hurts the heart maybe even a little bit more because he should have been playing more last season, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There was not a guard whatsoever last season that played at any point in time better than Jason Queso Brooks has played this season for Houston and even most of last season in practice. And some of that is also applicable for Noah McKinney as well. So it's nice to see him, kind of ride with what's happening right now and ride with Oklahoma State and hopefully being one of those tried and true, loyal and true guys that are willing to hang around afterwards and rebuild this system or the culture or whatever's happening at the moment. But also, when you look at this Houston game, why we all need to be paying attention other than to cheer on Stephon Boogie Johnson and Jason Queso Brooks, it's you look at what they spent on their NIL, right? Oklahoma State spent like 13, 14. And you got Texas Tech spending like 28, BYU spending like 20, K-State spending like 15. Then it's likely that Houston's probably only spending like 10 or 11. Why? For, correlation, Oklahoma State spent $5.4 million last year in NIL. They spent like 2.1, and we upticked to like 13, 14 mil this year, which naturally would probably mean Houston also upticked to like 10, 11-ish mil. So I think that they're proving that even with a 10, 11 mil roster, you can be way better than what Oklahoma State is right now with just the right coaching, the right schemes, the right fits, the right dudes. You're seeing Connor Weigman have a pretty good season. And then when you're watching their wide receivers get loose, it hurts the heart a little bit when it's Boogie, right? Seeing Jason Queso Brooks get pancakes after pancakes while pouring syrup on top of it while he was doing the same thing last year in practice. It's frustrating, but it's also exciting. Because at the end of the day, we got to find some fun things to be excited about. And watching some former Cowboys is a form of excitement. I mean, get excited about the French Falcons, undefeated 6-0, number 5 in America, about to play another undefeated 6-0 McPherson this Saturday for homecoming in Wichita. Another fun thing to get excited about, ladies and gentlemen, is Kappa. That's right. You've heard me mention it a couple different times. This is the College Athletics Players Association, and they're doing some remarkable stuff. I'll be doing a live show for homecoming on campus, partnering with Coney Island to be doing this ticket giveaway. We're giving away tickets. We're giving away some Coney Island stuff, gift card. You'll get to meet a decent number of pretty prominent folks, in my personal opinion. In addition to that, you will also I got to wait on the wording. If you're a Thunder fan, you're going to want to be there. I'll put it to you that way. All right, y'all. So we're going to have this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor. Hit the like button if you liked it. Dislike if you didn't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast with people out there. You are everything that makes this work. So I appreciate what you do. Go do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave some reviews. All right, y'all. Later, taters.